Working alone at night is already creepy. Until someone knocks at 3 a.m. It was not the kind of knock that demanded attention politely, nor the kind that belonged to someone who had lost their way. It was the slow, deliberate rhythm of something, or someone, that wanted to be heard. 3 sharp strikes against the glass door of the empty campus library. The sound echoed down the aisles like a pulse in the dark, and the student, sitting alone beneath the tired yellow light of the circulation desk, knew instantly that they were no longer alone. They had locked every door an hour ago. The hallways outside were supposed to be deserted. And yet, there it was again. Knock, knock, knock. The library at night was a place most students avoided. By day, it was crowded with chatter, with papers shuffled and keyboards clacking. But after midnight, it transformed. The silence deepened into something unnatural, heavy enough to press against the skin. The books loomed like tall shadows with eyes of their own. The fluorescent lights flickered as though straining to hold back the dark. But the student, Elias, didn't mind. At least, that was what he told himself. He worked this was the night shift to cover tuition, sitting behind the wide counter where the glow of his desk lamp offered a small island of safety. No one else ever stayed this late. Elias told himself the quiet was his friend. It gave him time to think, to breathe, to disappear from the chaos of the day. Yet even he could not ignore the way shadows seemed to pool unnaturally in the corners, as though waiting for permission to move. And now, at 3 a.m., they had begun to move. Elias had lived most of his life in silence. His parents, both gone before he turned 16, had left behind only debts and unanswered questions. His father had worked nights too, until he didn't come home one morning. His mother's grief was heavy, suffocating, until it drowned her entirely. That left Elias in a small apartment, carrying the weight of survival. He had learned quickly that fear wasn't something you escaped. It was something you lived beside, like a shadow that never left. Fear reminded him to check the locks twice. Fear made him study harder, knowing failure meant losing his scholarship. Fear kept him alive. But there were whispers, always whispers. Students on campus spoke about him in hushed tones, how he never seemed to sleep, how he worked when everyone else rested, how he walked with the look of someone who carried something invisible on his shoulders. Some even said the library had chosen him, that its emptiness matched his own. Elias never corrected them. He simply worked, night after night, pretending the silence didn't breathe. That night began like any other. Midnight slipped past with the sound of Elias typing on the library's old computer, logging overdue books. The building was locked. The campus outside was still. But then came the sound. First, faint, like footsteps in the stacks. Elias froze, listening. The library had been empty for hours. He stood, peering down the long aisles of books. Nothing, only shadows. He returned to his desk, uneasy. Then the shadows shifted. He saw them stretch unnaturally across the floor, bending away from the light as if retreating from something unseen. When he blinked, they were normal again. And then, the knock. 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 It rattled the front glass doors, echoing into his bones. He rose slowly. Through the fogged pane, he saw nothing but the outline of campus lights in the distance. The walkway was empty, yet the knocking had been real. His chest tightened. Every instinct screamed at him to ignore it, but the silence afterward was worse, like the building itself was holding its breath. He sat back down, pretending to focus on his paperwork, but the air had changed. It was colder now. The fluorescent light above him flickered with a faint buzz, as if struggling to stay alive. From the corner of his vision, a shadow slipped across the far wall. It moved quickly, vanishing behind a row of shelves. Elias turned sharply. The aisle was empty. He told himself he was imagining it. Too many late nights, too much coffee, that was all. But then the whisper came. It was soft, almost tender, like someone speaking from the next aisle over. His name, drawn out, fragile, yet unmistakable. Elias. The voice had no body, no source, just the crushing certainty that something was standing where his eyes refused to land. No one would believe him if he told them. His classmates already treated him like an outcast. Professors dismissed his exhaustion as laziness. The campus guards laughed when students reported noises in the library. He was alone, and the library knew it. Knock, knock, knock. The sound came again, louder this time, but not from the front door. From inside, from the stacks. Elias's breath caught. Someone, or something, was knocking on the shelves themselves, the wooden panels trembling under invisible hands. The noise rippled through the aisles, circling him, closing in. He pressed his palms against the desk, trying to steady himself. Fear rose in him like a tide, but another voice whispered inside his head, "Trust it. Fear keeps you alive." He forced himself to move. His steps were slow, careful, as he walked between the shelves. His flashlight beam quivered across spines of books, across dust motes that floated like ash. The air grew colder. Halfway down the aisle, the beam caught movement. A shadow darted across the floor, stretching impossibly long, sliding toward him. Elias froze. His heart thundered. Then, in the silence, he heard breathing. Not his own, heavy, deliberate, coming from the next row. "Who's there?" His voice cracked, thin and uncertain. No answer, only the sound of pages turning, fast, frantic, as though unseen hands were rifling through books. Elias gripped the flashlight tighter. He wanted to run, but his instincts told him something darker. If he turned his back, he would not leave the aisle alive. The whispers returned, overlapping now, like a dozen voices speaking in unison. Words he couldn't understand, except for one phrase repeated clearly. "Open the door." The meaning was simple. They wanted him to unlock something. Maybe the front doors, maybe something worse. Elias clenched his jaw. For the first time, he didn't just feel fear. He felt defiance. The library had chosen the wrong person. He had lived with fear his entire life. He would not be its servant. He walked back to the desk and sat down. His hands trembled, but he stayed. The whispers circled him. The shadows stretched. The knocks rattled the shelves. Still, he refused. And then, silence. It was not relief. It was pressure. Like the calm before a storm. The shadows seemed to recoil as though testing him, waiting for him to break. But Elias did not. He sat, spine straight, staring into the dark with the weight of every loss he had ever endured pressing behind his eyes. That was when he realized the truth. The shadows fed on fear, but they also respected it. Fear was a language, and Elias had spoken it fluently all his life. The whispers grew softer, not pleading anymore, but acknowledging. The shadows no longer reached for him. They bowed. And in that moment, Elias understood. Fear doesn't mean weakness, he whispered into the silence. It means I'm still alive. The lights steadied. The cold began to fade. The shadows retreated into their corners, no longer hunting, but watching. Elias rose, his body trembling but unbroken. He walked the aisles once more, flashlight steady this time. Nothing chased him. Nothing touched him. When he reached the front doors, the glass reflected his own tired face back at him. For a moment, he thought he saw shapes standing behind him in the reflection. Tall, crooked figures in the aisles. But when he turned, the library was empty. He locked the doors again, tighter than before, and returned to his desk. The night stretched on, but the knocking never came again. By dawn, Elias left the library with the same weary walk as always. To anyone passing by, nothing seemed different. But inside, something had shifted. He had trusted his instincts. He had listened to the voice of fear, and it had saved him. The library still stood, silent and patient, waiting for the next night, the next shift, the next soul who might not listen. But Elias knew better. He knew that fear was not shameful. It was sacred. And sometimes it was the only thing that kept you safe